I've never been able to tell this story to anyone, not fully, not without that knot in my stomach tightening just thinking about it. It all began when my family and I moved into an old house in a small town somewhere in America. The kind of house that looks harmless during the day, but hides something darker beneath its surface. Something lurking deep below, in the basement. My name is Michael, and this is the story of a house we thought we could make a home, until the basement door rusted shut and what lived beneath started to breathe. When we first arrived, everything seemed normal enough. The house creaked, the floors groaned underfoot, and the air had a chill that never quite left. The basement door was old, rusty, and sealed tight, with splintered wood around its edges. Every time I walked past it, I felt a cold draft brush past me, like a slow breath escaping from some forgotten place. We avoided going down there. My younger brothers wouldn't even come close. The silence around that door was heavy, almost as if it held its own heartbeat. But one night, I heard something, a faint breathing sound, soft and shallow, coming from beneath those floorboards. I tried to convince myself it was nothing, maybe the house settling. But the breathing grew louder, slower, almost deliberate. I called my sister to listen, but she just laughed it off, saying I was imagining things. That night, while everyone else was asleep, I felt a presence just outside my bedroom door. A slow, rasping breath filled the dark hallway. I turned on my flashlight and looked towards the basement door. It was slightly ajar, just enough to let a sliver of darkness crawl out. I slammed it shut and bolted my bedroom door, but the uneasy feeling didn't leave. Over the next few days, strange scratching noises echoed through the house. The sound always seemed to come from right beneath the floorboards near the basement door. One evening, I decided to face whatever it was. I crept down the stairs to the basement door, heart pounding. As I reached out to touch the cold, rusty handle, a low growl vibrated through the floor, a sound no animal I've ever heard could make. Then a heavy breath, slow, wet, and so close it felt like it was right next to my ear. I pulled back, nearly falling down the stairs, and ran back upstairs, locking every door behind me. That was just the beginning. The next morning, I tried to convince myself it was all in my head, just the house playing tricks, the stress of moving, or maybe even a nightmare lingering after waking. But the scratches under the floorboards hadn't stopped. In fact, they grew louder, sharper, like something clawing to get out. I told my parents about the noises and the basement door moving on its own. They shrugged it off as old house quirks, saying, "It's just the wind or the pipes settling." But deep down, I knew it was more than that. My little brothers refused to come near the basement door, and even my sister avoided that side of the house altogether. One night, unable to sleep, I heard again that slow, wet breathing. But this time it was accompanied by faint tapping noises, like nails lightly rapping on wood, rhythmically and steadily. It sounded like it was coming from beneath the floor, directly below my bedroom. I grabbed a flashlight and slowly crept downstairs, every creak of the old house echoing loudly in the silence. The basement door stood closed and silent, but the air around it was thick, heavy with something I couldn't name. I knelt down and pressed my ear to the floor near the door. The breathing was louder now, and beneath it, I thought I heard a faint voice. Not words, just soft, guttural sounds, a language I couldn't understand. Then, the floorboards under my hands trembled violently. I stumbled back, heart pounding so hard I was sure it could be heard upstairs. The basement door rattled violently, as if something was trying to break free. Terrified, I ran back upstairs and locked myself in my room. I didn't sleep that night. Every minute felt like an hour as I listened to the pounding and breathing from below. The next day, desperate for answers, I searched online for any history about the house. That's when I found it, buried in old town records, a story about the basement. Decades ago, a man who lived there was rumored to have been experimenting with dark rituals in the basement. He vanished mysteriously, and after that, strange disappearances began happening in the neighborhood. They never found him, or whatever else had taken his place. That night, after reading about the dark past of our house, I felt a cold dread settle deep in my chest. The basement wasn't just old or creepy. It was a place where something sinister had been awakened long ago. I couldn't shake the feeling that whatever had been trapped down there was now aware of me. I decided to show my parents the article, hoping they'd finally take me seriously. But when I brought it up at dinner, they dismissed it as town gossip and warned me not to stir up trouble. Their faces were pale, though, and I caught my father glancing nervously toward the basement door. The next evening, as the sun disappeared behind the trees and darkness swallowed the house, the noises started again. The slow breathing, the scratching beneath the floorboards, and now something new, a faint whispering, almost like a chant, rising from the basement. I sat frozen in my room, heart pounding, listening to the chilling sounds. Suddenly, the basement door creaked open on its own, revealing nothing but thick darkness beyond. A foul, damp smell drifted up the stairs, making me gag. Summoning every ounce of courage, I grabbed a flashlight and made my way to the basement door. The air was icy cold, and my breath came out in shallow clouds. I stepped closer, the floor creaking beneath my feet. As I reached for the handle, I noticed fresh scratches along the door frame, deep gouges, as if something sharp had tried to claw its way out recently. The breathing grew louder, almost impatient. With a shaking hand, I pushed the door open just enough to slip inside. The basement was pitch black, except for the weak beam of my flashlight cutting through the darkness. I saw nothing at first, just old crates and cobweb-covered shelves. But then my light caught movement, a shadow flickering just beyond the edge of the beam. I froze. The breathing was right behind me now. Slow, heavy, and wet. I turned slowly and caught a glimpse of glowing eyes staring from the darkness beneath the floorboards. Before I could react, the floor trembled violently, and a guttural growl erupted from below. Something was alive down there. Something waiting. My heart slammed against my ribcage as the glowing eyes locked onto mine from beneath the floorboards. The basement was filled with a cold, suffocating darkness that seemed to press against my skin like icy fingers. I wanted to run, to scream, but my legs refused to move. Then a slow, wet breath exhaled directly in my face. The smell was rancid, a mix of rot and decay that made me gag. I stumbled backward, nearly falling down the basement stairs. That's when I heard it, a low, guttural growl that vibrated through the wooden floor like a warning. Suddenly, the floorboards beneath me began to shift and creak. It was as if something massive was moving just below, scraping against the wood with long, claw-like nails. The scratching grew frantic and desperate, the noise echoing off the cold, stone walls. I scrambled toward the basement door, fumbling with the rusty handle. It wouldn't budge. The door, which had barely opened a crack moments before, now slammed shut with a force that shook the entire house. I was trapped. Panic surged through me as the breathing intensified, now accompanied by the unmistakable sound of something dragging itself beneath the floor. The basement was no longer just a dark, forgotten room. It had become a cage for something horrifying. I shouted for my family, but my voice seemed to vanish into the thick darkness. No one answered. The only sound was the relentless breathing and the scraping, as if whatever was beneath the floor was preparing to break free. Desperately, I searched for another exit, but there was none. The basement was an old, sealed cellar with no windows, a tomb. I was trapped with whatever lurked beneath the floorboards. As the creature's breath grew louder, I noticed the floorboards began to warp and crack, tiny gaps forming between the wood. Something was pushing upwards, reaching for the surface. In those terrifying moments, I realized I wasn't alone in that basement, and whatever was down there was coming for me. Trapped in the suffocating darkness, I could hear the floorboards cracking and splintering beneath me. The creature was close, so close I could almost feel its hot, rancid breath on my skin. My flashlight flickered wildly as my hands trembled, the beam darting across the broken floor and rough stone walls. Suddenly, the floor gave way just a little, and I caught a glimpse of something monstrous, long, pale fingers reaching up, covered in grime and slime. The eyes I had seen before glowed brighter, filled with hunger and rage. I knew I had to act fast. With a surge of adrenaline, I kicked at the basement door, pounding on the rusted metal with every ounce of strength I had. My screams echoed through the house, desperate and raw. Finally, the door creaked open, and I tumbled out, gasping for air. My family rushed to my side, shocked and terrified by my wild state. I told them everything, the breathing, the scratches, the glowing eyes, and the creature beneath the floorboards. The next day, we hired a team to inspect the basement. When they pried up the old floorboards, they found deep claw marks gouged into the wood and strange, unidentifiable stains. But no creature. It was as if whatever had been there had vanished, at least for now. We never stayed in that house again. The basement door was boarded up, and we moved away as fast as we could. But sometimes late at night, when the wind howls just right, I swear I can still hear that slow, wet breathing, reminding me that some doors are meant to stay closed.